Welcome to my Florida garden. I'm in Sarasota and it's now January. Last week we've had tons of rain, tons of wind, so everything's a bit damp and a bit wet. Just going to walk you through the garden so you can see the progress. So this is my shade area. I planted a couple of ferns which are growing really well. Found a couple of ferns on the property that I just thought they were really pretty. They go next to my lemon drop and my fluffy ruffle fern. My begonia's doing really well, the coleo's doing well, and my Amazon lily seems to be loving all the rain. This is a black bat plant. All of this was in one pot and it's been producing for the last 5 years. They come up with these beautiful black bat flowers, but it was time to divide it, so I basically divided it all and I've got several new plants out of that. I've got the main big one and I've got a baby there and I've got 2 more over here. My orchids are doing well, losing their flowers a bit, but that's fine. And my bed that I planted up in episode 1 is doing well. This flamingo flower has flowered several times. I think it seems to be happy here, as does my calathea. So going back to the main garden path, my plumerias are doing great and everything's loving the rain. So, my Altamira, this is a really easy plant. You can just take the tips off down to a leaf node, literally pinch it with your fingers, and you can pull the leaves off and you can stick it in the ground and that will grow into a cutting. It's so simple. I did that before with this one. I had a couple over here. I think a rabbit was getting in here and that's why I put a cage on, because I put several there and they got eaten. So I will try that again. So this is my elderberry. Before, when I moved it, it sort of went into shock, so it lost all its leaves. But as you can see, it's all come back. It's actually doing really, really well. And I have another one on the side over there that is also doing amazingly well. In fact, everything here is just growing so well. This is the pineapple guava, which also has doubled in size since I planted it. It's really sort of come back. This is my butterfly garden that I'm sort of creating. I actually am going to create a long border with this, with a couple of trees in it, just to give that partial shade, which flowers sort of really need in the heat of summer. But I've got lots of salvias growing. I've got this fabulous salvia here. Don't know the name of it. It was just bought at random and didn't keep the pot, unfortunately. But I have lots of native salvias, the pink and the red. I also have the blue salvia. That is a variety called Sally Fun Blue Emotion, which is meant to be fantastic for growing good variety. I also have the coreopsis and the lantana. See under there, which are doing pretty well. So this is the kale I planted, which is doing really well. It was getting a bit crowded, so I actually took a couple out and put in the small beds I've got here. These are sort of temporary. While my house is still under construction, I can't have any more beds, but there will be more. The thyme that I grew last time is doing really, really well, and I actually took some cuttings and I've got those in a pot there. This is Sissio spinach. This is a tropical or subtropical spinach, very nutritious, really interesting, and obviously takes the heat, which is great to grow. I've got some tatsoi growing here and I've got some little gem lettuces. So these were the courgettes or squash that I planted the seeds in the last episode, and I planted them in here. They're doing really well. More lettuce, and this is African blue basil, which is a great basil for subtropical Florida, very Florida friendly, and it's also a great companion plant. It repels mosquitoes and flies. So planting certain plants next to each other for beneficial reasons is called companion planting. And there are lots of reasons to use companion planting. For instance, planting basil next to tomatoes will repel flies and mosquitoes, as well as the basil improves the growth of the tomatoes. Planting marigolds will deter nematodes in a lot of plants, so that's why you often see marigolds planted in vegetable plots. So this was the Don Juan rose I planted. I cut it right down. It has been flowering ever since. It's just actually finished flowering. The last rose I left on so you could just see that it's actually still flowering in January, but keep cutting it back, and I put a trellis up on the wall, so it's actually got something to climb up, and you can see all the new growth looks really healthy right now. Next to it is the bleeding heart vine that we put up. You can see from the last episode to this episode, which is only 2 months, I think we planted this in November, it's now early January, and it's just shot up the wall. So it's still got sporadic flowers on it. I expect this to flower profusely in the spring though. So I have this ivy here, and it needs dividing because I think I want to pot it up into several different pots. I think I can get a couple of plants out of this. So just turn it over, squeeze the pot, it doesn't want to come out. So you can see it's got a nice lot of healthy roots, and just looking at it, I'm thinking it divides naturally into 2 clumps there. So I'm just going to gently pull that apart without damaging the roots, without damaging. Oh, that's fine. You can see it's still got a nice healthy root, and that's got the main root. So now I will pot these up separately. This one has a huge hole at the bottom, so I'm just going to put a stone there, add some compost. Actually, it's too much compost. Put that in. Put the compost around the plant. There. The compost is a little bit wet because we had loads of rain last night and all my compost got wet. So just push it down. Just a little bit more. Make sure that the soil is in contact with all the roots. And there you have it. And a new plant. And I've got another one there. And I will do that one in a moment. The other thing I want to do is I have an amaryllis here. Now this amaryllis is looking very sad. It's basically been in too much shade. It's been under a tree. And amaryllis, although they like some shade, they prefer sun. So dappled shade is the best. So I'm hoping that I can just pull this out, which I can. So you can see what's happened here. The roots have literally just gone round and round in a circle, and although it's put out different pups, babies, it's probably not very happy right now. So I'm going to divide this. Get my shovel there. There we go. So this one is the mother plant, and you can see by all the roots it's got, this is also the biggest. The other thing I'm going to do is this won't flower, it's just producing leaves. I'm going to actually cut some of the leaves down, basically regenerate it, because the leaves are just too long and it's not a happy plant as it is. Get rid of that one. So I have a pot here. Amaryllis like to be quite snug in their pots, so you don't want to go with a massive pot. You just want to put it in a new pot that's sort of got a couple of inches between the bulb and the edge of the plot, really. So take some of that compost out, a bit too much. So push all its roots down. Actually, off a couple of the dead ones there. Alright. and then pot it up. So you want to leave the bulb sticking out a bit. You don't want to cover the bulb until up to there. You want to actually see the bulb. And I can put some gravel on that. I will probably just, it's quite damp right now, so I will probably just put that in a sunny location and it should be fine. It should actually flower. With these are the pops from that mother bulb. Pull one apart. They're much smaller. I will do exactly the same with them. I will cut the leaves and I will put them in a smaller pot and probably just take a few of the roots off just to regenerate the plant a little bit. And most amaryllis will produce pops, and right here I've got like 4 different bulbs to pot up. So I've gone ahead and potted up 4 of the amaryllis. I've still got a couple of babies that really need much smaller pots, that they were nice and snug in their pots now. Actually cutting the roots a little bit invigorates the bulb, but I'm not really expecting them to flower now. They will just wait. They will go into sort of a dormancy mode. The 2 ivies are now potted up, and just to invigorate the ivy, I'm just going to prune it back a little bit. Two new plants and 4 new amaryllis with a couple of babies still to be potted up. So another plant I wanted to talk about was bulbine. I actually divided this. It was a bigger plant and I got 2 plants out of it. And it's actually a great plant for Florida. It develops big sort of mats and with all these beautiful flowers, and attracts pollinators as well. Hi, so now it's April the 1st, and first things first, I just wanted to get to the amaryllis that I repotted in the last segment and took all the pups off. You can see that this one is actually doing really amazingly. It's got foliage, it's got flower bud coming, and this was the mother bulb. This, strangely enough, just has a flower bud, and I can see foliage coming, but it seems to have put out a flower before the actual leaves. And these were all the babies that I took off. As you can see, they are doing really well right now. To the garden behind me, things have progressed a lot. Everything's grown up. We've had a lot of rain in the past month or so, not so much in the past week, but everything is growing really fast, growing really well as the weeds, of course. And because of my house is under construction, I'm having to not spend as much time out here as I'd like to, so everything looks a bit wild, but that's fine. I can get to it in my own time. At my butterfly garden, this is doing amazingly well. This is my butterfly stroke cottage garden, long border, whatever you want to call it. Been really interesting. This tomato has self-seeded itself here, which is great. I mean, that is the ideal cottage garden, because years ago, historically, especially in England, they would plant vegetables primarily, but flowers as well. And the flowers bring in the pollinators and keep the unwanted insects down, as well as pollinating all the vegetables. So this is perfect. I'm quite happy for a tomato to be here. Coming along, my salvia is doing really well. My lantana is doing great. I've got several native salvias in here. I had several milkweeds, but the onyx are laying their eggs, and the caterpillars are eating all my milkweeds, so which is fine because they'll all come back again. So I have gaura here, which is doing really well. Plectranthus throughout the bed, the purple, which is really a nice accent plant. My perennial penta, which is doing amazingly, and the monarchs love this as well. I often go to butterfly gardens and you only ever see lantana. I mean, that's all you really see, and so you can have so much more in a butterfly garden. You don't just have to have native stuff, you can have unnative stuff that will just attract pollinators, because that's what it's about. It's not about having native only, it's about attracting pollinators to your garden. Salvias, and over here I have the only native lantana to Florida, and as you can see, it's not that showy. I'll just get the flower. It's not that showy. I mean, it's quite insignificant, but it does attract loads of bees, which is really important. Here I have a Madagascar palm, which is doing really well. I think when I bought it, it was like 6 inches in a pot, and I grew it on in a pot for a while, and now it's doing amazingly in the ground. My bulbine is doing great, really great for pollinators, and that will be a big clump. Where I've got not much planted, the weeds are coming through. So really, rule of thumb is to cover the ground in plants and you won't get weeds. Where I've got more things planted close together, there's no weeds. So that is a good tip. This is an orange Geiger tree, has beautiful orange flowers and is a native, although that is sort of debatable. Some people say it's a native, some people say it's not. But I believe it's a native, so it's here. And then we have the small orchid tree, which is beautiful. I grew this one from seed. I've been trying to grow some more seeds and they haven't taken, but this one did take. And it doesn't get that big. It only gets to about 12 feet, which is really great. I always save the seeds from it just in case the frost kills it, because it is frost tender. So a new vine I just planted is my Lady Margaret passion vine, which is beautiful. It is so delicate, the flower, and it attracts Gulf fritillary butterflies, which have been laying their eggs on the passion vine, and the tiny caterpillars are coming out. So I expect to have a cloud of Gulf fritillaries in my garden soon. This is my chalice vine. Took this from my old house. It was in a pot, and because of my move, I had to keep it in a pot for about almost 2 years. So I've now put it in the ground and as you can see, it's doing really well. To my plant shelf, so this was always intended to be a desert rose collection, and I love desert roses. They're just super easy to take care of. They love full sun, but the only problem that if we have a lot of rain, I tend to put them under cover because they don't like to be super wet. As long as they're in free draining compost, so they drain really well, then they should be fine. But I always just put them under cover if I know it's going to be a hurricane or tropical storm or something like that. They come in all different colours. These are singles, I have doubles, which I'll show you in a minute because I have a fabulous one. This is one of my favourites. This one just flowers and flowers. It just produces flowers on bare stems, and then the leaves come out, and sometimes it flowers and has leaves together. But some people don't like the structural quality of them because they look bare, but I just think it's beautiful. And a couple more I've had cut-ins from, so. My roses are doing really, really well. This Don Juan, which I've talked about before, just fabulous. It just keeps growing, keeps producing flowers. I keep cutting it back. I've actually had to tie it in because it's getting a bit rampant coming out here, but when this has finished flowering, I will cut this back again. I will cut it off at the top as well when that rose is finished. My angel face is doing really well. I had a few flowers on that. The bleeding heart vine, I'm expecting this to flower in the next month or so maybe. Just rampant. Just wants to keep going up the wall, keep cutting it, keep pruning it back to keep that bushy sort of look. So if you remember in the very first episode, this was the first part of the garden that I planted up. My bridal wreath, obviously it's been winter, so they've been dormant, but they've got all new growth over them, so I expect them to do well this year. My pineapple hasn't done anything for about 18 months. I mean, generally when you cut a pineapple and you stick the top in the ground, you can expect maybe 15 to 18 months. and it's been moved around, so it hasn't had a permanent location, but I just thought put it here in mainly sun, partial sun, and it's actually got a pineapple beginning, so that's very exciting. Just some all cuttings here. I'm just a bit chaotic here right now, a bit disorganized because I've got so much building work going on. I just have to keep moving things around, but all this will get planted or it will get put somewhere else eventually. My elderberry trees are doing magnificently. They are even actually in flower, beginning to come in flower, which they are. They're just so beautiful. They're so delicate looking, and they're super easy, native to Florida. Both of them are doing pretty well. I think this one's doing a little bit better because I think it gets just a touch more sun than that one, so it's a little bit fuller. But this was the one that I moved and I shocked it and it had no leaves, and now look at it, it's doing really, really well. So everything here is doing great. I'm expecting this all to fill out this summer and start to get the look I'm looking for in this section. So back to my small vegetable plot. It's looking a bit sparse right now because literally for the last, I don't know, 4 weeks we've been eating out of here. So these lettuces are Little Gem. I never take them out of the ground when I pick one. I just cut them off at the base, and within a few weeks they will sprout again. So they're called cut and come again vegetables. You can do that with lettuce, certain types of lettuce, but Little Gem's a good one. You can do it with kale. I've been doing that. I've been just taking the leaves off and it's been putting out new leaves, so you don't need to destroy the plant. You can just keep it perpetuating. I have society garlic in here, which is a great companion plant because it keeps the pests off. I put some honeydew melon seeds in some compost and surprisingly they all came up, so I've got a million of these seeds right now. But I put a couple in here and they seem to be doing well. My tatsoi, I've been eating tatsoi again, just taking leaves so the plant perpetuates. My Siccio spinach is doing really well. I use that in salads a lot. A couple of random tomatoes came up, so I've just left them in there. I do have a butternut squash here. I had to move it because it was in a really inconvenient location. It was getting too much shade. It was producing tons and tons of leaves and nothing else. So I cut all the leaves off and I planted it in here. Hopefully it will get much more sun and will actually produce. So this is the least worked on part of the garden. This has actually got rubble next to it, so this is just what I'm putting big shrubs in. My Dombaya that you've seen before is actually doing really well. It flowered like crazy at Christmas for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, but it's growing. I have lots of weeds in here, as you can see. I have a Milky Way tree, which I'm super excited about because this gets to be quite a small tree, but it has beautiful white flowers, and it's just one of those really rare trees that you don't often see. Next to it, I have a key lime, and I actually have some limes growing on it. I've had limes before, and they normally do really great here. This is my Turk's cap that I'm turning into a tree, and I keep cutting the leaves off that come up on the stem and just allowing it to push out at the top. And as it gets wider, I will just keep cutting it back to sort of train it. Next to this, I have a banana shrub, which I've had before. It's just an ornamental, you can't eat anything, but the flowers when they come up are pale yellow and they smell just like ripe bananas. They're really pretty. And I've got a couple of blue porterweeds in here, mainly for pollinators and butterflies because the Gulf fritillaries love them. And I have a yellow cestrum here, which is doing really well. Again, something I've had before and does well here. This is Iridium or fleabane. I know it as fleabane. Comes up with lots of tiny little daisies, likes full sun, surrounded by weeds of course. So back to my desert roses. This is one of my most favourite ones, and this is just abundant in flowers, and it always needs deadheading because it just produces so many flowers. It's just gorgeous. And then the other favourite one, I've actually got a couple of favourites over here. So this one is a double, and it is spectacular. I've actually just bought this one because I couldn't resist. And then the one over the back, it's just really pretty. It's like a little harlequin. Very, very pretty. I've got several others growing here. So, joining me today is Mia. She's my new Maine Coon kitten. Very sadly, earlier this year we lost my old Maine Coon Kizzy, who was 16. Now we have a new Maine Coon to join my other two cats. And she has fun out here playing in the garden. So that's all I have time for today. Of course, if you want to know more about the plants I'm growing, then absolutely ask questions. But you can subscribe to my channel. Until next time.